action item is to take a look at the September 19th minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions?
I'll move that the September 19th meeting minutes be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approved unanimously, thank you. All right, James, you want to talk to us? We're just here. Okay. Well, talk to us about the new agreement.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yes.
You could try that one, yeah.
Okay.
What's wrong with that?
On keyboard. All right, we're good. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Finance Committee, James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer. So I'm pleased to be here presenting this again because it's signaling hopefully what will be a successful full ratification of our newest contract. So this is the fourth one under my belt since I've been here. These can go either way. They can either be really contentious and take a long time, or a year or two, or they can, both sides can be pretty amicable and reach a tentative agreement. So I think we have that here. So let me just give you a little bit of background before I keep going. So I'm here before you today seeking your approval and recommendation to the board for a 3-year contract with our frontline employees. And the frontline employees represent the largest of our unions, and I say frontline, that just pretty much means the employees who deal directly with the customer or deal directly with the product, which in our case are the buses. A little bit of background for you. So again, this is one of our 2 unions, but again, it's the largest union. This spans 460 employees. So it's bus operators, nearly 381 of them. It's customer service representatives. Our abbreviation, we always call them CSRs, and it's our mechanic of nearly another 100 or so. We reached full tentative agreement on Tuesday, October 2nd, and what that means is that both sides, PSTA and SEIU, have gone through all the proposals. We've gone back and forth on the negotiating, and just the people at the negotiating table have said, okay, I think we're good. I think we have a deal here. Both sides also knowing that they need to go back to their group and reach final agreement. So for SEIU, what that means is their negotiating team members will go back to their bargaining members and they'll take a vote. And that will represent their ratification on this contract. That is currently scheduled right now to be next Friday, October 19th, and they just need to get a majority vote. What I'm told from the union is they've been kind of showing everybody what the changes are, what the recommendations are, and it looks pretty favorable right now, fingers crossed. For us, right here today, if we get a recommendation from you to the board, the final step in ratifying this 3-year contract will be to get board approval at our next board meeting here in October. And again, the new 3-year contract, of course, as I always like to tell you, as we believe is within PSTA's 3-year projected budget. So really quickly, let me just give you a little bit more background about who all this encompasses. So when we talk about, or at least I talk about our frontline employees, we're talking about 10 bargaining positions. There's 10 different classifications as they are displayed in our contract. Bus operators, of course, our largest group, nearly 380. Customer service representatives who take all the phone calls in the phone room. They're at our terminals in Grand Central and Park Street and Pinellas Park answering questions, selling passes, giving bus information, that type of thing. And maintenance is split in between 2 divisions. So you have our fleet division, you have technician 1, 2, and 3. The separation really is just the level of mastery and the skill that they have to be able to repair certain items. We have our service attendant groups who clean and fuel our vehicles at night. We have our inventory control clerks who really receive and distribute the goods and supplies at PSTA. In our facilities division, really maintain everything, all of our items, buildings, amenities, from top to bottom, from tip to tail. We have our facility technicians, maintainers, and cleaners. So that's pretty much, when I say that, those are the folks who this contract represents. The services they're responsible for, of course, bus operations, customer service phone lines and terminals, as I mentioned, the mechanical repairs, preventative maintenance, vehicle servicing, even our sedans and our cars, building and asset maintenance and management, and the emergency response. And we all know we were fortunate to have Hurricane Michael pass by us. Of course, unfortunate for those who it affected, but this is the group that will be called upon to run the emergency bus lines, the evacuations, the shelter runs. May still call on some of them, even still in the next few days, to take a drive up north to help out with evacuations up in the Panhandle area. I have this chart here because this represents our current pay structure. And I won't go through all the numbers, but there's a couple of things I want to point out to you and the terminology I'm going to use later on in this presentation. So if you look in the orange row up there, you see it says steps, and it says steps 1 through 6. When you're hired here as PSTA, and one of those 10 bargaining positions that I mentioned, you were hired as a step 1. You were hired at an entry rate. Every 12 months, if you're still here, you get a programmed wage increase, or called a step increase. We call this our wage progression or step progression as the union knows it. So if I'm a bus operator, currently right now I'm hired at $12.85. 12 months later, I go to step 2, step 3, so on and so forth, until I reach top rate at a step 6 or 4.5 years later. So for all the bargaining employees that come here currently right now, it takes them about 54 months to go through progression, and then they reach the top rate, the top step rate. Again, just our goals during bargaining, of course, for us to stay within budget. The union is focusing on what they're going to get for wage increases year to year. And then our shared goal was to be competitive in wages and performance. And when we say competitive in wages, we're not trying to beat our neighbors, but we're trying to keep pace. But we certainly do our due diligence, and we take a look at, what is Hart doing, what is Jacksonville doing, just to kind of see where we are. But we still do what we're able to do within our means and within our budget. But it is a kind of a good reference to have for ourselves. So our main focus during bargaining, the PSTA theme was sustainability. We are seeing a lot of 20, 25, 30-year people retire. They're hanging up their bus driving shoes, so to speak, and they're moving on. And it's leaving us with a lot of younger folks. Same thing in maintenance. The issues that we're having is bringing in good, solid, quality applicants through the door that not only want to apply here, but want to stay here long term. We're looking for the next 10, 15, 20-year people, and it's been very hard at what we're hiring at to begin with, because people have a hard time on $12.85, $11.89, $10.63 at 40 hours a week. So again, we want to be competitive, but we want to be fiscally responsible. And of course, performance driven. Now, when we go into negotiations, of course, the union wants to get every cent that they can. And we understand that going in, and we try to meet somewhere in the middle or somewhere, of course, within our budget. But in exchange for that, PSA says, you know what? The work has to show. You have to be accountable. We want to see performance improve to our customers. We want to make sure that what you're getting and what we're paying you to do, the job reflects in our end product on the road. So here's the best and final highlight for you. This is what got the deal done October 2nd. Negotiations, they lasted about 4 months, 12 sessions, and over 98 proposals were exchanged and negotiated and went back and forth, back and forth. So as it stands, the increase to the top steps, and when I say top steps, those are those step 6 people. To those top steps only, which is not all the bargaining, is in year 1, a 3.25 increase, which will be retro back to this past October 1st. Year 2 and 3, 3% in each of those years, effective October 1st of 2019 and October 1st of 2020. One thing we were able to achieve is raising the minimum starting wage for all those bargaining positions to $13, which we're really proud to be able to do and stay within our budget. And we were able to raise the starting wage for bus operators to $15 and $17 for mechanics. I do want to get into that a little bit more, but that number is important when we look to try to get quality applicants through the door and kind of give ourselves the competitive advantage. So the top rate wage increases FY19 through 21 look as follows. These last 3 columns just represent what the actual number will look like over the next 3 fiscal years for each of those 10 classifications. I had some of these slides in during negotiations, and I always, if you notice that bus operator seems to be in a larger font or stands out, because it was mainly bus operators in the room, and so I really wanted that to pop out to them. Right now, they're at $22.85 for a successful approval and ratification of this contract. They'll go to $23.59 and break $25 in about 3 years or so. Just so you know, we've always kind of been in the middle of the pack when we've negotiated in our rates through the years. Nothing has changed. These are some of the other transit agencies in the state of Florida, as you can see. And again, we're right there in the middle of the pack. We're not the best, we're not the worst, but we do try to keep up with a fair wage increase every year, because we know our employees have to keep up with the cost of living, inflation demands. The one thing you'll notice for our neighbor Hart right there is we kind of are just leapfrogging each other. Just depends on who had the last negotiations pretty much. Right now our drivers make $22.85 and they make $22.90. So with this one we'd be over them at $23.59 just because we got done with our negotiations. And when they get done with theirs, maybe they tie us or they go forward. Yes, sir.
Are most of these contracts done the same year, or do you find them they're all over the place?
For the agencies, they're kind of all over the place. When I looked, a lot of them will actually expire this year. So they're going to be, I would say, at least half transit agencies in the state are probably at the negotiating table right now. And then some other ones will expire next year, so on and so forth. Some folks do 3-year deals with a 2-year wage with a reopener. It's great if you can get the 3 years, so you don't have to really worry about doing that. Same thing with our mechanics. They are in the middle of the pack as well. You notice some of the higher rates in Miami, Broward County, West Palm. Again, a lot of that is can be attributed to their long-standing contracts over the years, really pushing that number up. But they're also in larger areas, higher cost of living areas, maybe larger operating budgets. So that number's up for some of those bigger properties, larger agencies. But again, we kind of keep pace in Central Florida here with Jacksonville, Orlando, as you can see, Daytona. So that would be the wage. Again, these two wages would be the wages if the contract is approved at $23.59 and then $26.42 for mechanics. And then my last slide, and then I'm going to hush up so you all can ask me questions. PSTA column, SEIU column, just go to the PSTA column first. Again, we're looking at performance. We're looking at accountability always. What are we getting out of this, union members? What are you going to commit to us? Minimum starting wages, believe it or not, that's a check in our column. The union comes in, they're bargaining for the veteran folks. They're bargaining for the folks who've been here 10, 15 years, and they're not so much worried about who's coming through the doors. We have to worry about that. We have to worry about the future. So being able to push those up and get the union to say, okay, without them believing, we're taking away all this money that the top end could make by trying to raise the bottom was a huge accomplishment, believe it or not. Stringent safety procedures, being tougher on accidents, how we define an accident, all the little mirrors against fixed objects, the tire rubs against the curb, drug and alcohol testing, how they take care of their license itself, are all things that we put in this new contract. Customer service enhancement, again, how are you treating the customers out there? Are you leaving people behind? Are you running early? Changes we made to try to bring that up as well. Performance-based progression, and you're going to see that a lot in maintenance really, is how you can move up to the next step. How do you move from technician 1 to technician 2 and 3 and earn more money by being more qualified and achieving mastery in different levels? So right now, Henry and his crew are developing a 2-year internal training program, which if the mechanics take advantage of it, will give them the skills they need so they can maintain some of these increasingly that we see these vehicles that are coming in with the advanced technology. Our hybrid electric buses, our electric buses. This is not something that our mechanics just know how to do. They have to really go learn, achieve it, achieve a mastery. So one, they don't break anything or destroy or void any warranties, but two, and keep those vehicles out there on the road. So that performance-based progression will give our employees the opportunity to say, yeah, I do want to be better. I do want to achieve a different mastery. I do want to get these ASC certifications. And that's going to be a great program going on that we can kind of farm our own talent. Greater work, increased work procedure controls, again, just for us, just to do what we need to do. The one thing they tell you when you go to negotiation school is to protect management rights. And we protected it, of course, and we just remind the union, okay, but when your proposals interfere with our ability to do what we need to do, that's going to be a no-go. SEIU in their column, wage and allowance increases, they got that. Flexible vacation and holiday use, just giving them a larger window of when they can use these days for days off, improving their quality of life outside of work. Earned longevity pay is a new one, and really a bonus for the union. They're recognizing the folks who've been here 20, 25, 30 years. And if they're in good standing at the end of the year, they'll get a lump sum bonus in recognition at the end of the fiscal year. Greater work schedule controls and health insurance guarantees, those last two check marks, those are actually in the form of a memorandum of understanding, and it pretty much just allows the union to have greater input into how the company is managing insurance year to year. And they want to be able to just have input on some of the decisions we make as it affects them, because as we see, those health insurance costs are going up every year. Those annual premiums are not slowing down. And then greater work schedule control, same thing. They just want to have some input when we go to cut the runs, because how we do that impacts their work schedules and their quality of life in and out, inside and outside the place. So I'll stop it there. Of course, I have to end with this. The agreement is within PSTA's 3-year projected budget. Again, seeking your approval today and recommendation to the board, and I'll leave it there for any questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
James, you kind of brushed a little bit on benefits of longevity.
Yes, sir.
There must be other benefits, such as health care, vacations. Could
Yes.
you just give us a little summary on that, please?
Yeah, so the only reason I listed longevity pay up there is it's new. So the other benefits, of course, vacation, we went through that. They have an opportunity to carry over vacation with rules, of course. If they take a minimum of 2 weeks, they'll be able to carry over their vacation up to 120 hours to the next year, and they can get paid out on all unused vacation. They have things like birthdays that they get to use as a holiday, and one of the things I had listed up there is they wanted a larger window when they could use their birthday. Right now it's, hey, you have to use it within the pay period. Some of them couldn't do that, so we widened it out a little bit. Of course, health care guarantees in our MOU. A couple of years ago, we had one plan for everybody. Now we have gone to 3 plans. The union is very interested in how we manage their health care. We offer a buy-up plan, a base plan that the majority of our employees are in, but we also offer a high deductible health plan, which we're seeing more and more people enroll in. The union was particularly interested in keeping the high deductible health plan free for single employees coverage for the length of the contract as a benefit and as a sell that they could take back to the union. So that's one that we're seeing greater interest in because it's lower, there's less coming out of each paycheck. It comes with a health savings account that the company puts into, but also the employee can add into every pay period and increase. Of course, that won't be taken out of taxes. Am I leaving anything out, gentlemen?
Well, and Commissioner Eggers, sorry, they are all, every employee, including them, are in the Florida retirement system, so they get a retirement.
So the employees with 55 months, for example, how many weeks vacation do they get?
They'll get 200 hours or five weeks of vacation, right?
Once they reach 15 years or more of service, they get 200 hours. It's incremental by 2 weeks. The first 5 years, you get 2 weeks. The second, you get another 3 weeks. After 10 years, you get 4 weeks. And after 15, you get 5.
Can you just, the health insurance or the medical benefits?
Yes, sir.
Can you just give us a little summary about that? I'm asking these questions because I'm relatively new here.
Yeah.
My fellow board members probably know the answers.
So every July, we have an open enrollment where we really try to educate the employees on what their options are going to be for the upcoming year. So it's a chance for them to really look at, do I need single coverage? Do I need to cover a spouse? Do I need to cover children? Do I need to cover the entire family? Now that we offer 3 plans, different amounts come out of the paycheck But for example, if you choose the buy-up plan, then maybe your co-pays are a little bit less. So maybe it's a $10 or $20 copay, $30 specialist copay, that type of thing, $10 prescription drugs. And then the max out of pocket is a little bit lower. So, you know, if you choose the base plan, then the copays are a little bit more. The max out of pocket is a little bit more. And then the high deductible plan, you're coming out of your pocket up front a little bit more until you hit your full deductible. So, you know, we have that discussion with them, because the thing that we find with the health insurance is we really have to educate our folks to make the best decisions for them, so that they're not spending too much money, but that they're getting the coverage that they need. So those are some highlights. I actually have a great health highlight sheet. I'm trying to picture it as I speak, so I can give you the highlights. Did I miss anything?
Well, I know Deborah's done that.
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
us before.
And we also
Slide.
offer dental and vision insurance as well. One of the other benefits of working here is there's a life insurance policy that's in place for each employee. So we get the vacation, sick, personal leave,
Yes.
birthday, holidays.
Yeah, it's a really good package, and this time, also in the contract, we put some tuition reimbursement language in there that will be over the overarching policy for tuition, and what did we call the title, Trish?
It's the Driving to Success Degree Achievement Program.
Right. And so that's been expanded, because before it was like a set amount of a few $100s in the contract if they take a course that's related to their position. And, bus operators are saying, I want to take this Excel course, but you're going to turn me down because you're saying, what does that have to do with my position? So we've really opened it up. We've opened it up in terms of how much money they can get, so that our folks can really further their education, and hopefully that kind of feeds back into the company in a lot of ways as well. So that's another benefit that they got this contract.
Anybody else? Commissioner Strowman?
And I apologize if I missed this. You said step one, are the bases are increasing 13, 15, 17, correct?
Yes, sir.
And step 6 is the percentage increases 3, 3.25, 3, 3.
Yes.
What's happening with 2 to 5?
So 2 to 5 there's still a built-in increase every 12 months. So
Okay.
you'll get an increase in wages every year until you reach top step. Those are set numbers, though. So when we
Are they fixed numbers or fixed percentages based off the base?
no, they're fixed numbers.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And when we do the budget every year, and if the board approves like 3% or whatever, it doesn't apply to those 2 through 5s. It only, the 3.25, 3, 3 apply only to the top step.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I should have started by saying I appreciate the last point in the slide, which is it all fits within the budget, which I think is a great point to add.
too.
Yes.
End on.
Yes, Mike.
When we talk to the
That's good.
members of the union, I know you had the slides on the hourly wages. Have you added in any of the benefit costs and comparing other agencies as far as the cost that PSTA bears for providing the different benefits like the health insurance, life insurance, and whatnot, so they get a sense of what the total compensation?
Right. We've started doing that more and more. We do it a lot with new hires, so they get a sense that, hey, if I'm starting out here at $12.85, if you add on, I think the number now is like 15% or maybe a little bit higher of their base salary, we say, that's your total, your compensation package. We are starting to get in those conversations more and more. This negotiation is focused a lot more on wages, but I did take an entire session out to break down the healthcare cost and the money that the company pays for every employee, just because I think they need to know. So, for example, right now we're over $1,000 that the company pays toward for each employee towards their health insurance. And I like to make sure that every employee knows that, so that, just like you're saying, they don't skip over that as an extra, benefit and value to their compensation.
Well, I think it would be helpful from a board perspective, when we're comparing other agencies as well.
Yes.
Is if that information is readily available from other agencies, is getting a true sense of where does our compensation package fit in? Because we're looking at the total cost per employee, not, our focus
Correct.
isn't necessarily just on the hourly rate.
We do have that we have pretty good data on the other one on health insurance. I'm not sure. I know James has done a good job of collecting the detailed bargaining contracts that all those other Florida systems have, but I don't think we've done a really comparative, like on vacation and other kind of benefits. But we could try to do that.
Before I go into sessions, I have a stack of the other agencies' contracts, and I'll go through them and I'll kind of look at, what are they doing for, what's their medical language, or how they offering their insurance different than ours, to see if there's any value in maybe, copying off of somebody else's best practice or model. But I haven't presented that really a lot to our folks.
Okay.
But I mean, you're absolutely right. I think our employees should get a sense of the total package, and I think for you all, it would be a added benefit for us to get you that information, so you see how we stack up.
And I appreciate that. You also said that under the new contract, the union will have input as to the health insurance.
Yes.
And they always have to.
To what extent is that input, do they have the ability to, kill a particular proposal, or is it just seeking, how does that input set to work?
Sure.
We
You wanna
have
answer?
had, and it's increased over the years, we have always had the union at the table as far as when we are looking at the health insurance plans, what we are offering. The last couple of years, because of the increase in the health insurance costs, they've taken such an active interest that we meet throughout the entire year to come up with ways of saving money, being healthier, et cetera. So they've been very active. I think this just sort of codifies what we've been doing, because they truly have been a participant.
So at the end of the day, they're not voting and
No.
agreeing to what we're doing.
They have
We're
input.
just saying we promised you we were gonna be seeking your input and
Right,
want
and I
your
value
feedback.
their input.
I agree. I just wanted to, I
Yeah.
understand the level of,
Yeah.
is it advice and consent? Or is it just consent, or is it just
Well,
a
and
heads up?
I think we do try to make changes as it makes sense. We always, and the one thing they know is if it's going to exceed what we have budgeted for the plan or what we're able to pay, then we're not going to be able to do it. But the union has surprised us in the last couple of years, and we held, I want to say, 4 or 5 meetings with them, at least once a month leading up to the contract, where we invited the union in. We invited our insurance broker in, and we had great, robust discussions on what the numbers are, what the claim history is, and what's driving the cost. And the union really wanted to focus on wellness. They wanted to say, yeah, what more can we do? What can our insurer provide for us in terms of helping us all be healthy? Are there gym discounts? Can they help us get additional equipment? Can they do something with the prescription? So those are the kind of conversations when we go in there. They really drill down on, how do we keep these costs down, or, can we just all go to Walmart and just all have, free high blood pressure pills? So, and usually, and those are the type of talks. They've asked for on-site, like a nurse to do blood pressure. And so we just talk about the different ways, especially with our employees' work schedules, how we can keep people healthy, especially if they can't get to the doctor during the week because they're at work. So those are usually how the discussions go.
Okay.
For the most part, just to give you a little snapshot of behind the scenes.
I have to add in, because I'm very proud of the fact that our leadership PSTA group that we have here, one of the members, which is part of our finance team, spearheaded a project where between the facilities here, this building and transportation, we now have an outdoor gym, which I actually went out and used yesterday and found out there's some things I really can't do. But
Yeah, actually, if you peek out
and
that
it's free.
window, at the
So-
break, you can see it right outside
Yeah.
that window there.
I have 2 additional questions. So, I should have written them down.
And I'll hang
Yes.
around too.
We
Commissioner
can go
Everson,
to
we
Commissioner
can go
Everson,
back.
I'll come down. I know, they were right there, and then I said I had 2 questions. and
That's
then
why I
I'll-
wrote them down. So
You'll understand when you get to my age.
Yeah. All right, so performance-based, you said that I see it's in the mechanic area really only. And
Yes.
the others, pretty much standard increases.
Yeah, standard increases. Well, we did, for the operators and for customer service, customer service was a big one. So we really kind of drilled down on wanting to see our numbers come up, wanting to see kind of less complaints of rudeness, less complaints of folks being stranded or not being helped by the bus operator or the customer service rep, early departures. And so we really had discussions on that, on how we could do it. And the main thing the union offered is to promise to walk arm in arm with us when we go on awareness campaigns. Now you say, how do you measure that? How do you ensure that? And I'm not a person that likes to use the word discipline a lot. I always say corrective action. So what we did was we went into our policy book and we kind of upped the ante on what the consequences would be for the poor performers. And so that was kind of how we worked that. And then absenteeism, is always a big deal because that cost us overtime. Folks that are just taking days off and aren't here, half the year, and then we're having to fill their shifts. So, we had conversations about how are we tighter on folks when they're out. Now requiring doctor's notes after X amount of days to make sure that people are accountable and they say they are where they say they are, and those type of things.
But there's no way to accelerate or decelerate on the steps.
Oh,
Those are
correct.
just years.
Those are
just
built in,
years
right.
based. Because that would be a way, if you had a really good customer service person to move them along that route a little quicker, but
Yeah.
or the other way if they weren't. But, okay, then on so the F is it? Are you guys fully vested at 8 years? Is that the same, or is it
For the investment
retirement?
policy, 8 years, and then for the
Investment policy is 1 year.
Oh, I'm sorry, for 1 year. I'm sorry, right, and then the
Right.
pension is 8 years.
For pension is 8 years.
Mhm.
That's pretty standard, right?
Yeah, that's normal for us.
Okay, so they're fully vested at 4.5 years, 4.5 years, or
No, they'll still be at
They get
8
to their
years
top
or
rate.
1 year, depending on.
fully
which
vested
one.
in terms of their highest rate?
Yes, so their highest rate.
Yeah.
So as they're here longer, that first year drops off. Is that the highest 5 years to determine their retirement? Is that the way it is?
I believe it's 8 years now.
Average.
No, I'm talking about
It was 5 years.
to determine a retirement salary. Is it the highest 5 years?
I believe now it's 8 years.
Highest
It
8
used-
years.
It used to be 5 years, and now it's 8 years.
Okay. So once you get past that salary there, you're getting that 3% bump or whatever we negotiate, and
Yes, sir.
and as you go here, if you're here longer, your retirement obviously is based on the higher
Yes,
wage.
yes, that'd be calculated to
Same.
the highest wage.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same kind of thing. So from a benchmark standpoint, I agree with you. It'd be nice to be able to see the complete package.
Mhm.
So that'll be, I'll look forward to
Sure.
seeing how we compare with others on that. We may be a little ahead or a little behind, who knows, so.
Absolutely.
And the better than budget, what does that mean? How does this translate to our budget, to that $1.7 million deficit?
It's about $150,000 savings
Okay.
In
So-
year one.
in year 1.
And that's the year, the
1.7.
1.7 was for year 1, right?
Yeah.
So there, you said you were gonna be trying to find ways to cut that over the year. So
Yep.
this is one of those ways that we've been able to start to, okay, just wanna make sure.
Oh, fuel prices are going the other way.
So that could change the budget again, the fuel prices, or are we locked in for the year?
Well, yes, we're locked in for a portion of it, but about 2/3 of it, but 1/3 is floating to the marketplace.
So that might
That might.
not help us.
Right.
But we're all tasked with coming up with 2% savings in our budgets.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
Commissioner Shulman
I wrote them
remembered what it
down.
was.
So, you mentioned that there's a life insurance policy that's paid for by PSTA. Is there any short-term disability? Is there a long-term disability option?
There is, isn't there's short-term disability?
I don't believe we offer short-term disability.
I know, we offer it to the employees to purchase through Minnesota, I think Minnesota Life.
Yeah,
So-
Minnesota Life is the accidental death and dismemberment.
Okay.
We have, I believe, Washington Mutual,
That's it,
which
okay.
is long-term disability. And we also have a partnership with Aflac, which employees can purchase on their own if they want. So that can serve as kind of condition-specific, if you're familiar with Aflac, for situations that could otherwise fall into short-term disability type of situations.
Okay, but that's not something the union has made any
No.
overtures towards. The last one goes more towards the drug testing policy. Now that medical marijuana is available in the state of Florida, have we adjusted the policy? How does that work
Well,
if there's any employees that fall under that?
That's a great question. We haven't adjusted our policy because we're under federal guidelines. And we've had the conversation come up a lot by our employees, and we say, listen, you're at a workplace where, as a required part of the job, you're in a safety-sensitive position, you must get drug tested as a condition of having the job. So, at least where it is, in terms of medically, I don't know that we've been really challenged with, but we've kind of stood by
I know
that
our legal
umbrella.
counsel has written up a legal brief on it.
Mhm.
The federal drug testing rules still apply. You cannot drive a bus and be on medical marijuana.
I understand, I just
Right.
wasn't sure if we.
Amongst many
I know
other
you
drugs.
had mentioned that there
Right.
was some changes to the drug testing policy as one of the
Right.
things that was worked on. I
Yeah,
wasn't sure
well,
how that fit in.
Those
I
spec-
realized that the federal
right.
policy.
Those specific changes was just to wordsmith our article in the contract to say now, if you have a report of injury, for example, under workers' comp, then Florida State Statute 440 will require you to submit to a drug test if you get injured on the property or on the bus as a condition of maintaining your workers' comp benefits. So that was really the big section that we added. We also added language to make sure that our employees knew that we were going to test under federal guidelines. So if they tried to come in and say, well, Article 2, subsection 1A doesn't say I have to do this, we're going to say, listen, we'll bring you out the federal manual, but we told you here, we're following the federal guidelines of testing, so.
And
That was
does
just
that
to
apply, does that
cover
apply to all
ourselves.
employees in the contract, or just the bus operators?
All the bargaining employees, except for customer service representatives. So we've gone through and identified who we believe is in a safety-sensitive position. And so, of course, all of our maintenance folks, our bus operators, even anybody who has to get behind the wheel, so it could be some of our supervisors, even managers as well. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
The SEIU folks are comfortable with this? We've got sort of pretty much overwhelming support for this?
That's what I hear, and then we'll
Okay.
know for sure when they take the vote next Friday. They'll be here conducting a vote from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay. All right, so we should know by the end of next week then whether this is a go.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
So,
So
and I-
your recommendation today would be pending
Right.
successful.
Right.
ratification.
Okay, exactly. Okay, any other,
Which will
okay,
know before.
Commissioner Bennett?
We're looking at a chart that's obsolete.
Yes, sir, that's
What's
correct.
what's the new one look like?
I don't have it on this screen, but I do have it for you, and it's something I can, but
Well,
the
this
new.
is the one you're asking us to approve, right?
Yes, so what I had on there, here's the new one. I had what the result of the 3-year wage increases would be. But as far as steps, I'm sorry, as far as, steps 1 through 5, here are the other numbers.
So you'd
The
like
first sheet
for us
is,
today to make a motion and approve the new contract as you have recommended?
Yes, sir, and pending final ratification, contingent on final ratification from the union, we'd ask for a final board approval as the final step in full ratification.
So, Joe, I'll make that recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Okay, Commissioner Schulman, seconds, all in
Can I
favor?
ask one
Aye.
question? Hold on one
What,
second.
you got more?
Just one quick question. When do you anticipate having the entire package comparables available for us to look at?
I can do it as soon as possible.
Well, I know we can add that, we can add the comparables on the health insurance, for the board meeting in a week and a half. We can put that together. I think on the other types of benefits, we can start putting that together and getting it, going to the other
Couple
contracts.
months.
Yeah.
Just whatever we can get together before the board meeting would be great, but then maybe within a.
And when you say comparables, you just want kind of a visual of the
Total package.
entire package, not necessarily as it compares to
Well,
all the other agencies.
I'd like to have a sense of, like, where we stack up there. I mean, we're in the middle of the pack, so to speak,
Right.
on wages, but when you put the whole package together, we're way ahead on rank.
Right.
Then we need to be thinking about that. If
Sure.
we're way down at the bottom, we need to be worried about that. So I think
Okay.
those are things.
The thing is, that we've got to have wages that will allow us to continue to operate. We can't be having everybody working overtime all the time and things like that. We've got to be able to attract employees and so on. So we really don't want to get bogged down in the minutia of the numbers on wages, because that's a competitive issue, not an issue with regard to.
I'm not sure what you
it's
mean
not a
by-
make or break thing as far as the overall contract.
No, I
pricing.
understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I'd like to know how we stack up. We talk about how we stack up as an organization with other organizations in the state.
Mm.
And from the standpoint that if we're at the bottom of that, we need to worry about losing people. If we're at
Right.
the top of that, then we need to think about how we operate this entity a little bit more effectively.
My
So-
sense is that we're right in line with the vacation and other stuff, and
That'd
then
be
I think
great.
we're.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And the other thing is with
Well,
this
within-
chart,
Yeah.
as James said, this chart is constantly moving because there are different negotiation timetables
The
for
wages
each
are.
of these
The wages,
items.
the
So,
wages tend to
yeah.
move more than the other stuff, but.
Okay, all right, I'll pull some stuff and send
Okay.
it to you.
With that caveat, you feel comfortable?
Yeah, no, I'm
going
fine.
to-
I'm
okay.
good. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, John.
Yeah, James, great job, I mean, an excellent presentation, and excellent negotiation, thank you. Okay, next in line here, hold on. Okay, passenger counters, excellent,
Christine is out sick today, so I'm your substitute teacher.
okay.
We're going to talk about automatic passenger counters. It's something that is on most of the buses that we have operating, but not all. It counts stop-specific boardings and alightings, and it has several different components on the bus. These components are usually purchased when we have a new bus coming. So when you talk about the cost of buses, there's the cost of the base bus, and there's the cost of all of the other equipment and items that we have specifically to our agency, and that includes automatic passenger counters. However, there's a large portion of our fleet that does not have passenger counters. So we use this data to show us where people are getting on and where they're getting off. It also has components where we show how many wheelchair passengers we have. So how many times is the ramp deployed, and also how many times do people put the bike rack down. As part of our new purchase, we'd like to get bike racks where we have sensors per slot, so we know when people are putting bikes and putting them off. What this helps us do is cite shelters. So if we know how many people are getting on at a particular stop, we can better assess where we need to put shelters based on our threshold for putting shelters and benches and other amenities, including potential bike racks and other partnerships with cities. It also helps us when we look at our service changes, like the 52LX that we talked about last month or the month before, how we consolidate stops to create more efficient express service. So where would those stops be? We look at stops that are high utilized stops or clustered stops. It also verifies our fare box counts. So if somebody gets on with a child in their arm, it requires the operator to push a button and say we have a child getting on. The automatic passenger counters, which are now overhead instead of on the floor, they can count the heads. They can count more accurate counts of how many people are getting on and how many people are getting off. So the people who ask us for this data, of course, are you all as our scheduling department, the planning department. We also use this for our American Bus Benchmarking Group. We get a lot of questions from cities and developers. I just got a question from the city of Clearwater. Can I get the ridership from this area in downtown to this area on the beach? Well, because I don't have passenger counters on all of the buses, I can't give them accurate counts for just that segment of the route. I can only give them for the entire route at this time. So the current challenges we have with the APCs is we don't have enough coverage on our fleet. This requires that we rotate buses, or we live without the data sometimes. So an example of that is the Suncoast Beach Trolley. We have a very specific and small fleet for the Suncoast Beach Trolley. If the particular vehicle with the APC is down for another reason, it could be just for preventative maintenance, we don't get the data for that bus that day. Or in other parts of the system, we need to rotate those APCs around so we get a sampling of the data. So that becomes a difficult thing for us then to rely on the accuracy of the data. So what we are proposing with this item today is to approve the purchase of 75 APCs that would be put on those buses in our fleet that do not have APCs. So this allows us to use this for NTD reporting. It allows us to have the interoperability of the fleet, meaning we don't have to rely on moving those buses around. And you may ask, well, why do you have 90-some buses that have them, which those components can come off as we buy new buses, and you have 75, and why does that not reach our 200 or 210 buses? That's because we're not asking for 100% in year one. We think that over time, over the next few years, we could get to 100%, and that allows us to complete the bus purchases that you've already approved in fiscal year 18 and 19. Those have already included APCs. We're also able to find about 10 APCs from another system in the country, so we're now getting those free. Sorry, F-R-E-E, free.
Well.
And so we tried to find some of those ways to make sure we could get 100% coverage. So that still leaves us with about 75 buses that we would like to have APCs. This includes putting APCs on the Jolly Trolley and the Looper, which I think is even more important for the partners that we rely on to give us funding to operate those services. The Looper, starting last Sunday, is now free. So there aren't the reliability of the fare box counts. So we'll be relying on APCs for the counts on that route. In addition to that, for the Jolly Trolley, we are going to take some of our older models, which APCs, which no longer work with our cybersecurity systems. We'll put those on the Jolly Trolley to run them as a separate APC counting system. So we're reusing those pieces, and they will be able to have better counts for the city of Clearwater, Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, and all of the promotional services that we run, especially in the spring. And so with this approval, we'll be able to get these on the fleet before spring break. I think that's a reasonable time for us to get at least the beach ones ready to go, and we'll have the data that our partners have been asking for. So I think that's
Okay.
everything that Christine was supposed to
Okay.
say.
Questions?
But I'll
Oops.
take questions.
Okay, great. I'm surprised, but Commissioner Schulman has a question.
Yeah, I don't like to use any of my questions at the board meeting. I do them all right here. So as far as the data, is or can that be then shared with the public real time via the app? So if I'm a bike rider and I'm taking the bus, can I see that the bus Cummings already has bikes on the bike rack, so I won't be able to use it? Or this bus is full, so I'm going to plan my time to catch the next one. Is any of that data planned on being shared?
Well, that's a really good question, but no, we can't, not with this program. So what happens is these buses come back and we
download it.
They download it, yes. So it is not, that information is not.
Do we know if that,
time.
at some point with the technology that exists can be reworked to then add that feature? Or is it, nope, we'll have to get something completely different if we want to do something like that in the future?
You know, I think in today's modern era,
Almost anything's possible?
Yes.
anything's possible.
We could even stop her if she
For,
wants ice.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure they
You
would
would
charge
use your
us
bus
some
app,
software.
right?
Yeah.
It would show there's a bus
Six
coming,
figures.
but there's no bike.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what he's asking, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Also, as far as the APCs, how long do these things last? When we buy one, we expect it to be around for how long?
At least 10 years. I mean, we have some systems, original systems that have been on since 2010. And just like anything, so long as the parts are available, and we've confirmed with this particular vendor that they do plan to support it for 10, 12 years, the lifespan of a bus.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, but I think sometimes there are several components, so sometimes if one component has an update, not all of the components necessarily are updated. So they have a CPU unit, and then they have different sensors, and so you don't necessarily have to buy everything, the whole entire kit.
And the last question is about the cost. That includes, the purchase of the APCs, installation, any integration, all that stuff is included in that number? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Evans?
just finishing up on a couple of those things. So the 75 is over the 5-year period. We'll be buying them.
No, we would buy those right away, and then we would have new units come in with each of the bus purchases, so as we take delivery of the
Okay, but
18 buses.
that's not additional cost to us other than through the purchase of the bus itself, right? I mean, we're not,
Right.
this contract is for
Yes.
$586,000.
Just for APCs to put on buses that don't have APCs. When
Right.
we've already put into our budget for fiscal year 18 and 19, the APCs that will come on those new buses.
Correct.
So as we retire the buses, those APCs will be taken off and they'll be put on other buses
it.
in the system.
Okay,
Yes.
there's a comment here that says fiscal impact. It says $586,000 funded by FTA formula grant funding. What does that mean?
That's through our 5307
Yes.
capital improvement program. So it's.
That's how this is being funded.
It's being funded through
Got it.
capital
Okay.
dollars
Got it.
from,
Okay.
from FTA.
And it is under budget. We had budgeted $600,000 for this.
So it's more than 2% under budget.
But that's the goal, is 2%,
I'm just saying,
right?
when you hit the goal, you gotta take it. I hit the goal.
2% add up, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
You good? Wasn't it?
One other, just on the first slide with the bus, it says, it counts, entry and exit, front, rear, and Arctic is, I'm guessing that's attic, not through the AC system?
Oh,
No, that's
Articulated.
Artic.
Oh, Artic.
Like articulated buses.
Awesome, thank you. I was thinking it was like the attic, like in an emergency, like the
No.
hatch in the top. but-
No,
Thank
so
you.
that, yes, the word
Or
is
like
correct,
Arctic
it's
would-
just an abbreviated, yes.
Going back
Thank
to the number 75, so that plus what we already have gives us how many total?
So that gives us about 165, and so.
Still short, so the rest you're counting. How many we're getting free
So
from
we'll
another entity?
get, so we'll get 10 free.
Okay.
So that's 175.
175.
And then you have the bus purchases, which would
Right.
be bits and
Okay,
pieces.
so we're deliberately putting these on the newest buses, and then as the oldest buses are recycled, then new buses will be purchased with this already on. So what's our time frame to get to where we would have 100% coverage?
This will get us to 100%.
Okay.
That's what I've been told, because I've had this exact same conversation
Yes.
15 times with the planning department, and I can't understand it.
Okay.
They promised me all we need to buy is 75.
Okay.
We're not trying not
Alright.
to, we're trying not to overbuy, because we think we can reuse some of the pieces.
Okay.
So we're trying to
Now,
leave
what-
some wiggle room to not overbuy.
Okay, the other question is, which I thought Commissioner Eggers was getting to, is will these ones, for instance, the ones we're getting for free, and the ones that we already own that are more antiquated, will they be able to accommodate the kinds of things we're talking about, like counting bikes on the front, for instance? Because I don't think the ones we have now do that.
No, we'll be only doing, only
So-
that new.
So we're not gonna retrofit those, right?
No.
Those will just be what they are. Okay, and what's the cost, Henry, for assembling, testing, getting the free ones into operation? That's not part of the 585, right? 586?
It's the install, includes the install.
He's talking about for the 10 free ones? The 10 free
Oh,
ones?
10 free.
Pardon me?
The 10 free ones?
10 free ones, yeah. Because they may have something wrong with them, they may be damaged when they're removed from the buses of the other entity, and so on.
Yeah, that would be done by our internal staff, technologies group out of maintenance. They're very familiar with it, so it shouldn't take long, maybe 2-3 hours a bus. And we have the diagnostic equipment to check the CPUs, check the sensors before they're actually installed to know that they're working, not working. So we've been assured that everything that's being shipped to us for free works.
Okay. All right, so that number, that 586 number is a hard number that we can work with. Okay. All right, any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move approval?
I'll
Okay.
support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. This is very interesting. I like this. This is cool.
So, would you like this on the regular agenda or on consent?
I don't know,
I think
do
we
we,
put consent.
I think we can put this on consent. It's not.
Great, thank you.
It's not that interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I'm kidding, I'm
It's
kidding, I'm
interesting to
kidding.
us, it's not interesting to anybody else.
Fair enough.
Just joking.
Okay,
Very-
all right. By the way, who are we getting those used ones from?
Oh, help me out, Mr. Burns. RVTD.
That's really nice of them to do that.
Richmond Valley Train.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing we did was ask, and they said
Great,
yes.
that's great, okay.
Anybody else we can?
Yeah, right. Okay, Flamingo, Espresso, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Presso Zenko, and I'm the manager of revenue and capital project accounting. Last month, we requested approval for the first of the 2 portions of the Flamingo Fair Services solicitation, the Fair Media contract, which was awarded to Electronic Data Mathematics. Today, we are here to request approval for the second portion of the solicitation, the Retail Network Services. As you know, 5 regional agencies, PSTA, HART, SCAT, PCPT, and BUS, have been working together on implementing the new collection fare system called Flamingo Fares, which will replace the magnetic stripes with smart card media. Having said that, the Retail Network Services is a very important component of the Flamingo project, which will provide our smart card customers with a robust network locations and offer a convenient way of purchasing the smart card and loading value to their Flamingo account. So I was honored to be one of the 5 regional working group members of the evaluation committee for this solicitation. Objectives of the retail network include attracting new customers to the smart card through the convenience and ease of use, accommodating the unbanked community, addressing the need to provide convenient locations for the areas where the low income and minority reside, and consolidating the smart card media distribution. But the end goal of the Flamingo Fair Services RFP or the implementation of the retail network is to have our riders go to any participating network locations and pick up the Flamingo card from the gift rack, purchase the card, and load value to their account. This solicitation was led by PSTA and our Director of Procurement, Al Burns. Al?
We released the procurement in February, and in May we received proposals back. We received a total of 2 proposals. The evaluation criteria was 200 points for qualifications, 300 for price, and 500 for the actual retail network service plan. The evaluation committee comprised of members of PSTA's finance team and member of HART's finance team. After the review of the proposals, Ready Credit was ranked number 1, 651 technical, 300 price, for a cumulative score of 951. Ready Credit, they perform this service at some pretty big agencies. SEPTA in Philadelphia, they utilize Ready Credit. UTA out of Portland, Oregon, whichever one kind of models their fare collection systems after, they use them. And they have over 500 retail networks here in our region, 175 of those specific to Pinellas County. Some of those some of those retailers include Publix, Winn-Dixie, 7-Eleven, Amscot, and CVS, just to name a few. Like we do with all of our contracts, we make sure that the companies are in good financial standing, and they checked out, and they have the capacity to perform the work. As far as the fiscal impact.
Good morning, committee members. Michael Hansen, Director of Finance. While the total value of the proposed contract between PSTA and Ready Credit will be $473,000 over the potential 5-year term, the actual fiscal impact to PSTA will be much less than this, as these costs will be shared amongst the regional working group. $23,000 of this $473,000 is a fixed cost that will pay for integration between the retail network and our smart card vendor. The $23,000 cost will be split evenly between PSTA and HART, with PSTA's share being $11,500. The remaining $450,000 in the contract are estimated commission costs, which will be split amongst the participating RWG transit agencies, and it will be allocated based on the number of taps in each agency's service area. The commissions to be paid are 4.5% on sales of funds loaded on smart card media. And this is actually great news for us at PSTA, because to our CFO Debbie Leas's delight, it will actually reduce our commission costs currently paid to our largest retail outlets, Amscot and CVS. These two retailers currently receive a 10% commission, and this will significantly reduce the commission costs currently given to these two providers. What we are recommending today is approval of a 2-year base term contract with 3 1-year options with Ready Credit Corporation, not to exceed 5 years of $473,000, recommending authorizing the CEO to exercise 3 1-year option years.
Okay. Questions? Commissioner Schulman.
So the item on last month's agenda was for the production of the cards. This is for the placement of those cards in retail outlets throughout the regional working group geography.
That's correct.
Okay. And as far as the commission, so before we were paying a commission based on the sale at the store location. Now you're saying that it's going to be per usage. So if I buy a card in Pasco County, but then I ride it in Pinellas, we're paying a commission based on where it's being used, not where it's being sold.
Yes.
Well, can I take that? So basically, today we're paying commissions based on sales of the tickets. Now we will be paying commissions based on the sale when a customer goes to a participating network location. They will load the card. They will load $10. So we are basically paying 4.5% on the $10. So then the tabs come in place when we split the commission cost between the regional working group. So we would like to know if the rider was PSTA rider or HART rider, and who picks up the cost of the commission.
So the commission amount is based on how much was loaded on there, and then divvied up based on the usage of that dollar amount. So if someone puts an annual, well, I guess you're not going to be putting like a monthly pass on there anymore. You're just going to get fare cap.
Value.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions?
We will still have the passport as a monthly product to be used by the HART and PSTA riders. That will be available product besides fare capping and the store value.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm assuming that you will monitor the sales agents and make adjustments according to what needs to be done. There may be some places that we have cards in a rack and they don't sell any, so we just would move them somewhere.
Yes, and one of the requirements for this RFP was robust reporting. So that was a requirement to see the sales that each network is making, the commission. So we will be getting all these reports to basically oversee what's happening with the retail network.
I would imagine also it's it's an incentive for the company that we're bringing on here to make sure that those are in places where the cards are moving, because that's where they're making the money, is on the sales. So if it's sitting on a rack at one CVS that never sells any, they're gonna move them someplace
That's
else.
what we should.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I would imagine that the vendor themselves is going to be very keenly aware of how do we get more of these into the public's hands, versus us having to tell them, don't give allocation.
Other questions? Okay, I would just like to say, you guys are really doing a great job, and this is very innovative. Thank you, keep up the great work, because this gives PSTA a higher profile as well, just on the public side. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move approval?
So I'll support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have Al and Henry on janitorial supplies.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al, just to give a little bit of background, in July, Henry Lukasik, Maintenance Director, he presented to the TRAC Committee the Bus Stop Shelter Maintenance Program. Last month, I brought before you a contract for uniform rentals. And with that contract, we looked and we evaluated. There were two things that we noticed. One was that the contract the action item did not allow the CEO to exercise additional options. And then we also looked at the contract, and it did not have enough it was not funded enough to last for the entire 5 years. And bottom line up front, we're bringing this action item to you under those same two reasons. PSTA's fixed route system consists of approximately 4,700 bus stops, 500 bus shelters, 500 benches, 4 customer service centers, 14 transfer hubs, and two parking rides. In 2015, the board approved a contract with American Janitorial for 3 years with the option to extend for 2 additional 1-year periods to perform janitorial maintenance service such as countywide trash collection, pressure washing, terminal restroom cleaning, and general repairs of the shelters and stops. The current 3-year contract expired on September 30th of this year. I want to assure everyone that there has not been a stop in coverage. They are performing as they invoice towards the end of every month. However, in 2015, the board action did not specify that the CEO could exercise the 2 1-year options. American Janitorial was awarded the contract in 2015, and according to the maintenance and facility staff, they're doing a good job. Increase of the contract value is attributed to additional trash collection demands throughout the county, greater frequency of pressure washing platforms and main transfer hubs, and increased hours of restroom cleaning services. The facilities out in the public, they're the face of the agency, and we're just trying to make sure that they're kept in good condition. The fiscal impact. The original contract was approved in 2015 for not to exceed amount of $2,107,013.90 over the 5 years. As of October 1st, PSTA has expensed $1,679,415 and is requiring approval to increase the original contract not to exceed amount to $3,307,014, which is approximately $1.2 million more. These services are funded through our operating funds from the maintenance department. And once again, the recommendation is recommend approval to extend the contract with American Janitorial Inc. for the first option year. Recommend authorizing the CEO to exercise the second and final option year, and recommend increasing the original not to exceed amount by $1.2 million. Once again, I'd like to just kind of go back to the background. The increase of the contract is attributed to additional trash collection demands throughout the county, greater frequency of the pressure washing platforms and main transfer hubs, and increased hours of restroom cleaning services. If there's any question, Henry and I will be more than field them.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So,
Yeah,
we did,
years.
yeah, we did the original bid, and this company got it.
Yes, sir.
And over that 3-year period, we've changed the specifications, or they didn't estimate correctly in their bidding?
Oh,
So we put out this bid, actually it was an RFP, got several responses. So part of our internal estimate of the volume of, at that time, 2015, of what we were doing, okay, was based upon previous years of work. 2010 through 2014 was used. Obviously, things have changed over the years. We receive reports from our customer base. This needs to be cleaned more frequently, more often. And as Al mentioned, it's about image, it's about perception, it's about maintaining those facilities. So we've added additional work. Now, we've budgeted that operational each year. And one thing about the maintenance department and the facilities maintenance department is no exception, is we're highly analytical. We analyze everything. If you saw that track committee meeting in July, you noticed that I presented a couple analytics. So this is a 3-year, I'm sorry, we're now in 4-year. This is a 4-year benchmark just in the amount of trash that we collect in the fixed route network system. So on average, it has gone up. We collect approximately 220 tons of trash a year, 440,000 pounds. So that has gone up. So we've increased with, as more foot traffic goes through our platforms, terminals, we power wash them, instead of once a week. Well, it used to be once a month. Now it's 3 times a week. Our restrooms at the terminals are increased cleaning services. Still not the full duration that those terminals are open.
Okay. All right, so essentially, what you're saying, this increase is pretty much due to changing specifications on our part. Not there underestimating the work that needed to be done.
We haven't changed the specifications as what they're supposed to be doing. We've increased the amount of man-hours we need them to perform the original specifications, the cleaning, the trash pickup, all of that.
Well, okay. Well, I just want to make sure that this isn't kind of a bait and switch where they have given us a product, a bid, based on what they should be doing, and then kind of underestimating it so that we pick them, and then they come along and say, oh, we're just not able to do that job that we told you we could do. So I just want to make sure that it's really based on our requirements or specifications changing a little bit so that they're having to perform more.
It is to perform
Okay.
more, and we also have field inspectors out there that check up and do quality.
But they have not increased or they've not changed
Their rates have
unit
not changed.
pricing.
Okay. Okay. And so again, your ability to do the two, for instance, if we had said that was okay the first time, this huge increase that we're talking about, you would just go ahead and sign it, and the board would never know about it other than through the reports.
Well, no, we would have hit the $2.1 million board authorized cap.
And then that would have still come back?
Yeah.
Okay, so your signature would have been just the original contract staying and moving along.
Yeah.
Once we get over that amount, then it still has to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, another question? Yeah, Commissioner Bennett?
Have we added time to the contract, or are you asking to add time
Let's say that.
we're asking for authorization to exercise
for
the
the
option.
CEO to go 2 more years?
Yes, sir. Well, 1 more year, and then after that, then the last year.
And just a clarification, Brad just said, like, if it goes up within 100,000, it doesn't have to come back. So,
See, is that automatic?
yeah, he can do that automatically, but so if it comes in, like this would have been significantly more than 100,000, it would have had to come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Mr. Schulman?
When did our service level request change with these folks? When did we start asking them to do more? Was it, 3 months into the contract, 2 years into the contract?
So I came on board at PSTA midway through 2013, so I had all of 2014, and of course 2015 we bid it out, so we had some pretty good data, and of course we started tracking complaints more in depth coming in, So I'd say right about 2016, 2017, we saw that the needs have
It
gone
seems like
up.
it's incremental. If you look at the $2.1 million that we authorized, divided by 5, that's around $525 a year.
Mhm.
And now we're like a little bit under $600K per year.
Well, 'cause
It's just gone up about $75,000 a year.
But what we're really also asking though is for a 1.7 million spending increase from, we spent 1.6, we wanna go to 3.3. So so that, over the next 2 years, so that would be 850,000 per year over the next 2 years. Right, yes, it's only a 1.2 million increase from the current contract max, but it's 1.7 from where we've currently spent. Yes.
You're correct.
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm struggling with is that is a you know, a huge increase. So we spent 1.7 in 3 years, and now we want to spend 1.6, 1.7 in 2 years.
Is that what we're doing, or are we spending 1.2?
No, the request is to ask for 1.2 on top of,
The 2 million.
increase the contract value by 1.2.
Above the
Right,
2.1.
so we're increasing the contract value to 3.3, of which we've spent 1.7, which leaves 1.6 available to be spent for this. I presume we're asking for 1.2 because there's an expectation that we will need that for this 2-year period.
That is what we've budgeted for the next
Yeah.
2 fiscal years.
And so I was wondering.
Plus the
You
short,
don't
plus
need
the
it.
5,
You don't
plus the.
need it.
Well, you, from the original contract, there's still some money left.
That's what I'm adding back
So
in.
So you're
for the
spending as
cost.
much in 2 years as you did the first 3 years.
And that's what I'm wondering, when did this service level change? You know, if the first 2 years were light, and then the 3rd year was up to this 800,000 level, that kind of makes sense mathematically. If it was evenly across that time frame, then we have a huge jump all of a sudden.
That's a
From
big jump.
Per year from last year to this year.
When we looked at the invoices, and that's what we did, just like Henry said, there has been a spike in the amount of invoicing. Obviously I wasn't here, but I did look at the invoices from the beginning, from 2015 until where we're at now. And after about the 2nd year, there was a significant spike. There's still money left on the contract right now. That's in the system, but the way that I looked at it was, by the time the 5 years is, at the end of the 5-year period, there wasn't enough money to be, I don't know whether enough budgeted is the correct word or not, but there wasn't enough money on the contract for 5 years at the rate that we're spending now. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, so philosophically, we're expecting to spend about $800,000 a year at this point going forward.
I would concur with that.
Just separate
Mike,
from just the
correct.
specific.
Mike, how much do we budget in the budget for this per year?
Is it all custodial services?
It's custodial services, bus stop, shelter maintenance, and paper products and janitorial
So
supplies.
next year's budget was $556,099.
About $600,000.
So we do not need to increase the value of this contract by the full 1.2 million, or the 600,000 for 2 years, because we haven't spent, we need it, what you're saying, Mike, is we need to increase the value from about 1.7 by another 1.2. That would be 2.9 to 2.9, we would be good.
Probably, given the $500,000 that you're
That we
talking
still
about.
have
It's
in
not
the
the
contract.
800 that we were just talking
Yeah.
about, so
Yeah.
probably don't need the 1.2. I guess the question that I was asking is, because of this large increase, and it is a large increase, do you think it would be better to go back out for RFP now instead of just doing a contract extension with these folks? Do you think because it sounds, I'm still not following that, well, we started getting all these additional bills, and it's like, well, no, you got this contract up front, we shouldn't have been getting additional bills.
Well, I think that's one of the things that Henry and I would have to talk about. But what we do look at is to make sure that the pricing is fair and reasonable, based on other people that can go out. It's not like when we bring an option, or before we exercise any option on any contract, we have to make sure that the price is in line. And there is some inflation that's involved with every year. If you look at multi-year contracts, they tend to increase annually every time you get ready to exercise an option. But you just don't sign the option without going out there and looking at other agencies and seeing that we're not being charged more than we should be.
But as I understand this, the fact is we changed the specifications, correct? So,
They
because
basically-
we increased the
The
amount.
contract is a unit priced based contract, so when
Right.
Henry says, go out and pick up the trash cans at Clearwater Park Street Transit Center.
Right.
One time a week, they gave a quote for that.
Right.
And then if he says, now you gotta go do it 2 times a week,
Right.
it's double, you know.
Right, okay,
So that was my point about changing the specs, and you said we didn't change the specs, but I think we did.
Yeah.
We did it in the quantities. What he's saying is when
Didn't
they
change the
go out
unit.
there, they do the same thing.
The unit pricing didn't change, but the
Right.
amount of times that we
So
send them.
that
Exactly.
effect was on us rather than the vendor, right?
Yeah, he
the
sends us
vendor
a bill for
didn't
2
do
times
anything
rather than 1
particularly
time.
Wrong, it's just we changed the specifications on how often you do certain items.
And because we've gotten such a big increase, my only question was, do you think we should go back out to bid now for that same 5-year thing, or not? That's, you know.
Well, I know that for what this contract entails and the size of it, that after the 4th option, so there's two option years.
2 1-year options.
2 1-year options, so that after the 4th option, we're going to start working on reissuing that bid. And
After 5 years, it'll go back.
Well, we're gonna start.
I understand, but this 5-year contract will expire. We'll be ready for that 6th year with a new bid package and new results.
So we probably start that process as soon as year 4.
Okay.
Because it is a large amount of service that's required to keep
I understand.
the network clean.
And it does take time to get up to speed.
Any other questions on this? We're gonna run out of time here in the next group, Jim. One quick question, have we decreased dramatically the amount of complaints, overflowing trash cans, messy restrooms, things like that?
Absolutely. Over the last 3 years, yes. Now, one thing I'm, tracking is that at some point, the amount invested will probably not see any return on that investment, because you're always gonna get a complaint about something somewhere. And at some point, you have to be fiscally constrained that, okay, this is what we can afford to do.
Mhm.
So we're trying to move that around as best as we can. I think we're probably not there yet, but that's something we do keep in the back of our mind.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Not a question, but a comment. Personally, I'd like to see the total contract amount stay within our budgeted amount for this item. I don't know if we have that full number yet. I think there might be a couple lines that get added together. But I also know we have room on the existing contract to continue to pay, although we don't have the 1-year extension technically.
That's the issue, exactly. We have not exercised the actual option. The contract expired on the 30th, and we just have to go through the exercise of, I shouldn't say exercise, but we have to go through the process of exercising the option, or technically, you have like 30 days in between, so there's no stop.
When do you think you might be able to have the total budget number for?
It's on solid facilities maintenance, Henry. Custodial services for fiscal year 19 budget is $556,990.
So I would feel comfortable, last year was just at 600,000, and a lot of it had to do with Hurricane Irma. So if we put in, basically, I know what you're saying, the 1.2 million is worth the next 2 years, but because we haven't spent all of the current contract, we can probably back the number down and still feel comfortable.
So is that number about 700,000 then?
So it'd be, I would say for the next 2 years, if it's, let's say 600,000 each year, there's your 1.2 million to add to what we currently have paid to date, so we can reduce what we're asking for.
500.
Yeah.
Or 400,
Yeah,
2.9.
400.
So we need to go almost to 2.9, we have
Yeah.
2.1, so
Yeah, I think I'm
800,000.
comfortable with that.
2.9 would give some cushion.
Mhm.
Okay, so I would make a motion to approve this, the extension of the contract, with an $800,000 increase.
Does that get to the 2.9?
That gets us to
And allowing him to redo to sign the 50.
Yes.
The 4th.
Okay.
Second.
Is everybody feel comfortable with that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks for all the input from the folks on the committee, too. All right, last item, Duke Energy contract.
Yes, in the interest of time, I'll be brief.
Yes.
This is not asking for money, this is about Duke
I don't want
Energy giving us
Commissioner
money.
Gerard mad at me, so,
So, very quickly, the last 3 months, we've been working with Duke Power as part of their Park and Plug program. So now that we have all electric buses on site, we have installed 2 depot chargers out in the back parking lot, and under this program, Duke would like to reimburse us the costs of those chargers and what PSTA paid for the installation of them. And under a 5-year agreement, they would essentially maintain them. So the total value that PSTA would Duke Energy would reimburse us would be $61,058. And so we're still working out the final language. There is some draft language contained in your packet. Hopefully we have it all ironed out by the time of the board meeting. And so it's action item before you is to recommend approval of this 5-year agreement with Duke Energy, pending final review from legal counsel.
okay, question?
Quick
Mr.
question,
Tillman?
what's in it for Duke? What, I mean,
They get the business.
we're using their power regardless.
I think these are grant funds that they get.
This is partnership. They get other subsidies. So being a regulated utility, there are certain programs that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty typical on
Yeah.
lots
I
of
think it's
places.
a great question.
Yeah.
They install the
I think it's a great
facility and then they charge us for the use.
Yeah.
I understand, I just know they were charging us for the use anyway, and we've already installed the facility, so, I'm fine with free money and having.
So you're not recommending refusal?
No, I make a motion to approve.
Wait. What about the inline chargers, Henry? Where do we stand with that?
We are finalizing the designs. The equipment will arrive on site by the end of October. And we've got an easement with USF, and we're working out the final logistics with an easement with St. Peter.
Okay, will we need to modify this agreement when are they gonna give us some kind of a credit on that one as well?
I think we're working on another agreement specifically for that.
Yeah.
Since it is
Okay, so that's
offsite.
separate from this. It's not gonna be a modification.
This is just for what's here right now.
Okay.
Tell me 100,000.
Go ahead, go.
All right.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, I'm
Okay.
assuming all these except the union contract are under consent.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought with all the confirmation on
Yeah, I
the
did.
back and forth
I
on
had
the other
heard it,
agreement,
so.
that we would bring that out, but okay, I'm happy to have it on consent. Before we go, one last thing, Debbie has an important announcement that she would like to make, and I'm sorry we ran over to our friends. Yeah, got 2 minutes, yeah, right.
Our 2-minute announcement is, number one, we're doing very well for the month of August. We are ahead of what we predicted in the forecast so far, and September starting out to look like a very good year. Passenger fares were above budget in August, will be in September. And that leads us to when we're ending our fiscal year. And we also, in this last week, got our award for our CAFR from last year, 2017. So Michael's playing Vanna White here. We're very proud of the staff who put it all together.
Okay, excellent. All right.
And also should just note, it was,
Yes, go ahead.
thanks for
Yeah,
being
yeah.
remote, but we did actually get a ridership increase
Good.
from last year.
Good.
Surprised it's not a hurricane.
Yeah.
It's based on the hurricane not running for 4 days, that helps
Yeah.
from month to month.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
We'll take it.
Can we extrapolate anything one way or the other from that, or no?
Hurricane decreased bus ridership.
not running the buses.
Yeah.
Not running the buses, you don't get riders.
Yeah, right, that's, yeah. I'll accept
So if we
that.
want to improve our numbers, we
I have
just
one
need.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Commissioner Bennett has a question.
Did I notice as we drove in that there was a abnormal amount of these white one-door buses in the parking lot?
No, those are the cutaways that
Yes.
have finally started arriving.
So there was more, and then those are the new buses arriving?
They're
Yes, we have
coming in.
several new buses coming in, new Gilligs that were purchased and ordered last year, so there's a lot of new equipment coming in.
And we put the decals and all that on? I thought they don't come from the manufacturer with that stuff on here.
The basic ones do, anything extra.
Okay, so if there's no other issues, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Right on time.
Yeah.
Very good.